Thanks both of you for joining us here on The World Today. And Greg, if I can ask you first of all, are you worried at all by the reaction we've seen from the global markets to these tariff policies?
Not really. I mean, of course, I don't like to see the markets going down, but I do think we expected some volatility. Markets, clearly don't like uncertainty, and obviously there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets right now. So I think as soon as we get to some more clarity, get through these bilateral trade negotiations with the larger trading partners, get through that and bring some certainty back to the market, and I think the markets will recover. You've already seen that today with with the EU stating that they're negotiating and are considering zero tariffs. I think that's good news, and you saw a big snapback in the market.
But how can you have certainty, Greg, when you have an administration that changes its mind pretty easily on tariffs? It pushes, it pulls. A lot of people don't know where they stand, and that can't be good, can it?
Right. In the near term, that's not good. But I think it's more important to get the asymmetric trade situation fixed. And I think this is typical of President Trump. He does something that's unorthodox or provocative. There's panic, there's a bit of outrage, and it turns out it works. And I think this will work. And we just have to fix this unfair trading system that we have. And I think the president's prepared to suffer through some market volatility to get there.
So, Joel, an asymmetric trade situation, do you agree with that assessment? And do you have faith that after a short period of volatility, we're going to see everything come out right?
Well, Mariam, that's putting a real positive sheen on a disastrous tariff rollout. Nobody expected the tariffs to be what they now have become. These are not reciprocal tariffs. It's not what the market was expecting. Israel, for example, now in the White House with Prime Minister Netanyahu meeting with the president, it got slapped with a 17% tariff, but it has zero tariffs on the United States. So this makes no sense. And I agree with Greg that there needs to be certainty. The one place there's no certainty, though, is coming from the White House. And that's what makes negotiating incredibly difficult. Markets are volatile because of this disastrous rollout. And of course, the questions persist as to how this is going to affect real Americans with inflation spiking, losing $7 trillion in the market over a few days. The list goes on and on of problems, but I think the uncertainty is going to persist because of the way we've seen it underway over the last few days.
And Greg, that's the worry, isn't there, that we're going to see inflationary pressure on Americans because of this. And I know we've seen tariffs on China before in 2018, but those tariffs were small fry compared to these global tariffs we're seeing around the world. Economists agree this is different. This is going to impact American pockets.
Yeah, I think some economists would disagree with that. And I think what we saw in the first term, as you pointed out, there was negligible, inflation. I think the products that were tariffed, went up 0.7%, and that was with a 20% tariff. So there's not a lot of evidence that shows the inflationary effects. MIT is suggesting, of a 10% tariff, only 2% gets passed to the consumer. 4% is borne by the producer. Another 4% is from the currency adjustment. So, I'm not sure that there's a lot of evidence. I think, and if you look at what the president is doing away from tariffs with the energy, liberating the energy sector, tax reform, and just massive deregulation, all of which are deflationary, I think you'll see some really good outcomes here.
Joel, what do you think to that?
Well, I'm not sure it's tax reform when we're going to have tax cuts for the billionaire class of this country. And when inflation across the board, we see economists suggesting it's going to be about a $4,000 a month a year price increase to families. Everybody knows that when there are tariffs, the consumer is the one that bears the brunt of that cost. And I think just to step back for a bit, the president's goals are too many for a unicorn type of policy that we now see that he's enacted, that somehow by enacting tariffs, manufacturing is going to bloom within days here in the United States, and people are going to come back to work, and that he's going to fix all of our deficit problems. He's just coming up with all kinds of rationales for these tariffs, which, again, I understand the impetus. We do need to protect and help and support our industrial base. It has to happen. But these are not reciprocal tariffs. They're not targeted like the ones on China from 2018, 2019, which are very narrow and targeted and focused on violations. Those were effective. These are not. These are broad-based, beyond sectors, and not tied to tariff rates in other countries.
Okay, Joel Rubin and Greg Swenson, it's been good to have you both on the show. Thank you for joining us on The World Today.
Thanks.